When you don't talk about the Christian faith in public, actually it's not that nothing gets talked about. You get other people manipulating media, manipulating education. Totalitarianism is when the individual conscience is not allowed. For the first time since the 17th century, the Act of Toleration, people are worried about what they're saying. If you lose your faith in God, you cannot actually have liberty at the end of the day.
G'day and welcome to Clayton Today. I'm Rod Earnshaw, and in this series we've been discussing threats to 21st century liberal democracy. Today we're looking at multiculturalism. Joining me is David Holloway, the Vicar of Jesmond Parish Church in the UK. Great to have you again, David. Now, I just want to recap just briefly the argument that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and particularly last week we were talking about political correctness, and we were saying that political correctness threatens our democracy because it says that certain topics are off limit. There's just things that we just can't talk about. Now, this week you want to talk about multiculturalism. How does multiculturalism fit into that framework of what we've been talking about before?
Well, basically, it's a sort of retreat into irrationalism. This is the big argument and the big worry. And multiculturalism doesn't allow a discussion of the virtues of the various cultures, the good points, the bad points, whether they're true, whether they're false, and so forth. When you're not allowed to talk about the truth of something, and you're not allowed to evaluate it, you're just left with responses, emotional responses. And it's this retreat from reason that is so serious.
Is this a racist argument that we're entering into here?
No, not at all, because culture is not really related to your biological inheritance, which race is all to do with your biology, you know, what skin colour you got and so forth. Culture is all to do with what is socially acquired. And it's totally irrelevant. I mean, everybody has some sort of culture, and they're so varied. So it's very important that everybody must be respected, whatever skin colour. But what we're talking about is the way societies live together, and they have a common life. And that common life we call culture. It's made up of all sorts of things.
Now, I'm not quite sure we've still quite got to the nub of the issue when it comes to multiculturalism, though. What is it about multiculturalism that says that moves it into this area of retreating from reason?
Yeah,
what is that sort of doctrinaire
because basically it's an ideology, and it says that, frankly, we must protect every culture, and we may not, in fact, criticise or evaluate it. And the argument is that that's the safest way to live together.
So this idea that because something is culturally held, therefore it's just removed from the realms of argument. We can't discuss the rights or wrongs, the merits.
Yes. And I mean, part of the reason is because people do misidentify it with racism, which of course is abhorrent. But it's very important to realise that what you have within culture is a whole range of things that a society generates, its thoughts, its attitudes, its taboos, and that it just is unreasonable not to be able to discuss whether it's good or whether it's bad, because it generates a culture, generates a political system. And I mean, one of the reasons why this is serious is because some cultures have evolved dreadful things, like Nazi Germany. And today there are countries where there's totalitarianism still. They're restricting freedoms of religion, of belief, and people may not convert, certainly out of some countries, from Islam into Christian faith, and there's persecution as a result. Now, I want to say that's wrong. I don't want to have that. Now, I think what people are worried about is that when you say that, the implication is this is sort of cultural imperialism, that, you know, the West is wonderful. Well, I want to say a lot of stuff that's going on in Britain culturally at the moment is undesirable. I mean, on a Friday night when everybody goes out in the big market and gets absolutely blosso, and they end up in accident and emergency wards at the hospital, costing us lots of money, I don't think that's a good culture. And I'm not wanting to say the Western culture is wonderful, or the Eastern cultures where it's under a different regime or religion is all bad. I don't want to say that at all. Let me put it this way. a culture is made up of so many different things. I like to think of it as concentric circles. That, you know, on the outer edge, you've got things like dress and food and so forth. Then as you go towards the middle, as it were, you get things which have certain values, what people believe to be right and wrong, and right at the heart you have religion. Now, it's perfectly reasonable, of course, to want to have variety of foods and clothes. But the point is, what is classed as right and wrong? Sometimes you have to object to. I mean, I've been in Africa and I've been present where you've had female circumcision, where in fact you've had actually slavery, where in fact when I was in Papua New Guinea there were areas where, you know, you still have cannibalism. We must be actually evaluating culture. Whereas multiculturalism says all cultures must be just accepted where they are.
I think it is worth just pushing, challenging that a little bit, and say that there is, when we say multiculturalism, you immediately think that's just, obviously that's a good thing, that we want to be able to live together in harmony, that we want to be able to show proper respect and tolerance and all the rest of it.
But the point is this, once you actually remove this whole area of discussion from reasonable evaluation and rational argument, you actually lose respect for people. It's interesting that, because you respect people because you treat them as human beings who have reasons and have arguments, and you can have disagreements peacefully. We insist in the West under our own democratic regime. But when you don't have those reasonable arguments, all you can do with someone where they've got differences is react emotionally. So if in fact they're just neutral, their culture, it's just a matter of indifference. If so be it's something that benefits you, you're very pleased. But if there's something that doesn't benefit you, all you have is hatred. Your emotions have to get into play. Well, that is not what we want at all. I mean, so when you have a reasonable and rational attitude to these things, and you do therefore make judgments, you can respect people as they are, and you respect them enough to want to argue with them because you think you can help them.
Thanks, Dave. No, I guess I'm seeing here we're developing a bit of an idea that multiculturalism is not a very helpful solution to this problem of different cultures living together. Particularly, you talked about this sort of concentric circles. When we're talking about evaluating cultures, does that different for the different elements of the concentric circles, starting from the things less significant?
Yes, because I mean, at the heart of every culture is religion. And that is what really is the nub of it. Now, of course, where you get even let's say the Christian religion, I mean, what then flows from that may well be hypocrisy, and you get bad things. That's why we don't want to say the culture in Christian countries or countries where there's a Christian main belief system is necessarily all good at all. It is, and it's developed in Christian culture over the centuries. The Christian cultures have not been all good. We know that, but we want to evaluate them equally. But the point is this: where you've had this Christian understanding of God and Caesar, which we've mentioned before.
So respect for the state, for political
and
power.
And God, the things that are God, yeah.
Religion.
Yeah, when you have that, you have a control over, as it were, the secular order and a higher authority which does evaluate that. And that we can explain and discuss this some other time, why it gives the liberalism we have. Whereas now what you're having in the West is either a denial of God, so you just have Caesar, and that's what's given rise to totalitarianisms of a dreadful sort like we've seen in Europe in the 20th century, in Russia and in Nazi Germany, or you're getting religions, particularly like extremist Islam, where you deny Caesar, and you have a kind of religious totalitarianism, which, because it's not heaven and we're not perfect, that can be equally dangerous. So I'm just saying that at that point of a culture, where at the heart of a culture you're discussing the religion, then it's vital that we do talk about these things. But as you go down this kind of spectrum, or the concentric circles, there are points at which it's grey, you know. Some traditions with regard to marriage and family.
Going sort of further out, maybe things like dress and clothing, food, so on, can be, in a lot of cases, quite...
Although even there, you've got to tease all these things out. This is why you want rational discussion, because some of it is perfectly reasonable, and some people, like in Muslim countries, they want it to show respect, and compare with some people where, you know, women let everything exposed, you know, they find that's immodest, and sometimes people agree with that, obviously. But then you get people who perhaps want to use the burqa, and this is a big discussion, who are actually not doing it for dress, but using it as a symbol to actually make another message, and that's another issue.
Now,
that's why these things have to be teased out.
I think it's absolutely right, and unfortunately we're almost out of time. Is there anything that you would want to direct people to if they want to take some of these ideas further and just think a bit about some of the concepts we've had?
Well, a man called Reinhold Niebuhr wrote a book on Christ and culture, but there's quite a good book by John Stackhouse called Making a Difference. A lot of people are asking these questions now about culturalism, basically because it's actually a dogma that's being forced on people and preventing people from actually having discussions. And I mean, if you say, I think this culture's better than that, then that's felt to be a cardinal sin. And we can't live like that.
That's been very helpful. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching. Next time we'll look at the alternatives to multiculturalism, lessons from the past on how different cultures can live together. So I hope you join us for that on Clayton Today. See you then. Goodbye. Thanks.